Thank you so much for joining with me. We are picking up our reading in Journey Through the Text of A Course in Miracles by Dr. KenWapnik, PhD. And this is Chapter 7, The Gift of the Kingdom. We are now picking up our reading in the ego sphere of the atonement. This particular movement of our symphony provides the clearest and most detailed exposition of the ego's plan to keep us mindless, born of its fear that without the mind it is nothing. The only way to make sense of this course theoretically and practically is to recognize the fear that is the source of this clever strategy. All the world's problems, the collective ones of war, famine, and death, and the personal ones of daily survival, are examples of the ego's plan to convince us that problems are outside the decision-making mind of which the ego is so afraid. How can you who are God's meaning perceive yourself as absent from it? I'm going to repeat that. How can you who are God's meaning perceive yourself as absent from it? The answer is that we become absent from the mind because God's meaning, which is what we are, can only be found there. If we are in the mindless and meaningless state of the body, there is no way we can remember our identity. Because of this, the ego continually drives us to seek outside the mind in the world for problems and their solutions. You can see yourself as separated from your meaning only by experiencing yourself as unreal. This is why the ego is insane. It teaches that you are not what you are. This explains why our being an illusion is a major theme of A Course in Miracles. The body and the thought system that made it are unreal. The ego is insane because it denies the only sanity, the atonement thought that says the separation never happened. If the ego thought itself separated and dualistic is insane, everything that comes from it dualistic and separated must be insane too, including us. Insanity leaves not its source. That is so contradictory, it is clearly impossible. It is therefore a lesson you cannot really learn, and therefore cannot really teach. Yet you are always teaching. You must therefore be teaching something else, even though the ego does not know what it is. The ego then is always being undone and does suspect your motives. The you and your do not refer to the self we think exists in the world. There is no physical self, but to the decision-making part of the mind. The you Jesus addresses is the decision maker, the self he wants us to get in touch with because it is the only place where there can be the meaningful change of choosing again. Only in our right-minded choice is found salvation from the ego and its insane thought system of guilt, attack, and death. Your mind cannot be unified in allegiance to the ego because the mind does not belong to it. In a sense, the ego trapped us at the beginning when we first chose it, for the mind ceased to be a decision maker and became an ego, burying the mind's other part, the right mind. We fear Jesus and his course because they call us back to the decision-making self that can choose against the ego. The mind does not belong to it, which yet tries to have us believe we are who we are not. Yet what is treacherous to the ego is faithful to peace. The ego's enemy is therefore your friend. Treacherous to the ego is its belief our minds will choose against it. Our only real friend is the decision maker's power to choose atonement over separation. Yet, as long as we identify with the separated self, we will agree with the ego's perception of good and evil. The cherished good reinforces our individuality and specialness, while the feared evil represents the opposite of specialness, the all-inclusive nature of forgiveness and the miracle. We're going to go ahead and stop there for now, and we will pick up here tomorrow. Thank you. I love you. Bye-bye.